And I've spoken to people before who like 5 years ago, I started this side hustle and I'm like, 5 years ago? What have you been working on? Well, I got to get my website figured out. And I'm like, why are we worrying about our website? It doesn't make you any money, right? Why aren't we worrying about the thing that makes you money? And
Like speaking to creative people who want to start businesses, again, creative people hate business. They love the creative thing they do. And in my mind, I believe a business is the best way to sustain the creative thing that you do without anybody else telling you this, that, or the other.
are there any certificates or licenses that someone needs in order to post fonts online or to sell fonts?
Anyone can do it. That's a beautiful thing about it. It's like the easiest business in the world to start to do creative digital design goods is what I call them, digital design goods. It's so easy.
You know, for us non-creative people, one of the tools I love to use is ChatGPT. And I'll take a picture of my website or I'll take a picture of something that I'm posting online and I'll ask AI, hey, what do you think about this? And it actually tells me, hey, your colors suck. Or, hey, this isn't right. You need to make the font bigger. Harbor Bickmore, welcome to My Elevated Mindset Business Edition.
Good to be here.
Thank you so much for being on.
Yeah.
Let's dive right in. So let's tell the audience what it is that you do for your business.
Okay, so what I do for my business, specifically what I do, is I make and sell typefaces, like fonts for the computer. But really what I do is sell digital assets. What the kind of business structure that I have could apply to any creative person wanting to sell a digital something. So like brushes for like Photoshop, or even like digital courses, or illustrations, 3D modeling things. Any creative person who makes something digital could relate, kind of just digital design goods is what I do.
Okay, I got you. So how did we arrive at that? What's your journey from where you started to how you arrived at that?
Yeah. Like how far back do you want me to start? Because I've been trying to make a living online and been very entrepreneurial for like 10 years since I got into the working world. I've been trying to make it work. Mm-hmm. But with this specific business, I suppose it started, I'll start with this. Scene, right? Pandemic.
Yeah.
That's where it all starts.
Okay, pandemic,
every story,
yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was living in New York at the time. I was going to grad school. It was a very intense program at grad school. There's like kind of the fancy dancy design schools. I was in one of those, and the pandemic hit, and they said we're going to shut down for 2 weeks. So I went back home to St. George, Utah, where my parents were, and I said, let me find a girl to keep me warm for 2 weeks. And I accidentally found my wife.
Okay.
And we all know how long that 2 weeks lasted. So I was like, I found this girl I really like, and I'm going to defer school a year. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to go back to do online school. And so then I was like, okay, I have this girl that I want to marry, and marriage is expensive. So I have no money to my name, but I have 1 year before I go back to grad school, which is like very intense. Like, this is no exaggeration. I logged my hours of how much I worked and was in class, 100-hour weeks, almost every single week.
Wow.
Like staying up through the night once a week. So I had this like, okay, I have 1 year to figure out a way to pay for rent and groceries in New York City for me and my wife while I'm in grad school putting in these 100-hour weeks. So like, I don't have time to work. I need a way to make passive income.
Yeah.
Money while I'm sleeping. And I have 1 year to make it happen. And I'd dabbled with creating fonts, and I was like, that's what I'll try. You make it one time. It's a digital asset. You put it online. When someone buys it, I don't need to worry about shipping, this, that. You just put it online, forget about it, and people buy it. And so that's kind of what I did. In that year, I also was working full-time and another job teaching, because, like, if the font thing didn't work, if the digital asset didn't work, So I was also working full time and teaching part time, saving up as much money as I could. And luckily, within that year, the digital design goods, the typefaces I was selling, it got to a point where by the time school started, I was making like $3,000 a month. I could pay rent, I could buy groceries,
Okay.
and I was good.
You were good.
I was good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, that's how I got into it. Just like I had very specific parameters. Need to make like $3,000. That was like I listed it out. All my expenses $3,000, and I barely hit that.
Yeah.
It was very nice.
Yeah.
And yeah, it worked out. I didn't have to work during grad school, and the money just came in from the work that I'd done a year previous. And just kind of rested on that year, and yeah, got me through school.
Okay.
So yeah.
So your business was born out of necessity.
Yes.
You needed
Yes.
that, right? And that's
Yeah.
that's how a lot of things come to be. Is people will perceive a necessity as I am so unhappy in my job that I'm literally going to die if I don't get out of it somehow, right? That can be perceived as a necessity. Yours was an actual necessity. You needed to
Yeah.
pay rent, buy food, and do what you needed to do in order to survive in New York City while you're going to grad school.
Yeah. And I will say this, like, full disclosure, my wife's father is a doctor, has plenty of money. He probably would have helped me out, if I was desperate. But just like me, myself, I was like, I need to provide a living for my family.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I am pathetic.
No, for real.
You
A
know,
real
that's just
man,
my
right?
mindset. So, like, yeah, like, I probably would not have been on the streets. And my father-in-law has helped me, in times in the past, helped me with the wedding. So
Uh-huh.
I probably wouldn't have been dead or on the streets, but it felt like that to
Yeah,
me.
yeah,
It
yeah,
was-
for sure. And
yeah.
there's something to be said about somebody who doesn't have a plan B, right? You may have known that your father-in-law would have helped you, but you created this space in your mind where you're like, you know what? I'm not going to accept that because I'm a real man. Right? And I'm going to fend for my
Yeah.
family. I'm going to buy my own food and I'm not going to take any handouts. And how am I going to do that? I'm going to create fonts.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm going to hunt rats in New York if it doesn't work.
Yeah. So let's break down the font creation, because honestly, when I first heard this, right, digital assets in the creative space, I love that. I've heard of that. Creating fonts is something I've probably never thought about when I think of an entrepreneur and I think of a business owner. So let's break down what's the analytical side of things, the money side of things with fonts. How many fonts did you need to make in order to make $3,000 per month?
Yeah. So early on, I was trying this for like months and months and months. And for about like 5-6 months, after 5 or 6 months, made $6.60.
Hey, yo.
One figure income, baby. Right?
But you were hooked from there.
Well, no, I was not quite.
Okay.
I was
okay.
desperate, and so I reached out to like everyone that I thought might be making a living selling fonts.
Gotcha.
Just cold email, help.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one guy got back to me. His name was Tom. He owns a type foundry called Tropical Type. Great guy, super generous. He FaceTimed me and he looked at my stuff and he's like, this is good, that's good, but you need to do the X, Y, and Z. And then he also hit me with like a 2-week timeline. So he said, you're going to take 2 weeks. Monday, on day one, you're going to do research. See what's kind of popular on these marketplaces that sell fonts. So go to the different marketplaces, see what's popular. And you want to hit like a golden area that's popular enough, but not same. So you want to be desirable but unique. So you want to like speak the same language, but use kind of different words.
Okay.
And that was his advice. Just make a product that you think is kind of on trend, but different enough so it won't get lost in the crowd. And do that. That's day one. Find that idea. And then for 2 weeks, make the font. And then release it at the end of those 2 weeks. So for about 2 years, I was doing a font every 2 weeks. And yeah, so just 2 weeks on the dot. After a while, I got quicker and quicker, so it didn't take me 2 weeks to do it.
Right.
And that's why I was able to get through grad school for that second year, because I had a backlog of fonts that I had already made that I could just take one day to release. And every 2 weeks I would just, release the work that I had done a year before. So,
Okay.
yeah, for 2 years I released a font every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And yeah, it got me to that $3,000 like minimum. Like I knew I wasn't going under that.
Yeah.
Some weeks I would go over it, or some months I would make. I think the most I made in school was like $8,000 a month. So,
Wow.
yeah.
That's cool. Just on fonts. And it's evergreen, so it's just producing you money. Does it still produce you money today?
Yeah. I still like work that I did 5 years ago. I'll still make money from that today.
That's the dream. That's awesome.
It's great.
So I want to backpedal just a little bit, because you said something that really caught my attention. And you said when you first started out and you didn't know quite what you were doing, you just emailed a bunch of people and you're like, help, I need help with this, right?
Yeah.
That is such a superpower. And I've talked about this in other podcasts, but there are so few people who simply cannot ask for help. And it's one of those superpowers that if someone could really understand just how valuable that is, you reaching out to other people and saying, help, I want to learn how to do this. And you got people to respond back to you. There's a million people out there who are successful in whatever niche you're going into, right? And they're willing to just reach out and go, hey, I will help you, right?
Yeah.
And so for those listening, if you're struggling with something, if you're in the mud and you don't know how to get out of it, reach out to other people for help. Just send emails, make phone calls, ask friends, some random person at Ridley's or Walmart, go, hey, I'm starting this. Do you know anything about it? No, get away from me, you weirdo, right? Or someone's going to go, you know what? I
Just
actually
buy the
do.
beans.
Yeah, the universe works in
Yeah.
weird ways, right?
Yeah,
So
no, totally.
that's super cool. So let's unpack I'm interested in this font thing. This is really cool. You're making passive income off this.
weird.
You're still making money off this. So where do you post the fonts in order for people to buy them? Like, how does the transactional side of that work?
Yeah, so this is another thing with the business that I think it's a great business for any creative person to start, because creative people want to start businesses not because they like business. Most creative people hate business,
Sure.
but they also hate their 9 to 5, and I relate to that very heavily.
Yeah.
So like my thing is I wanted to start the business that allowed me to do the thing that I love, make fonts. And any of the other details like marketing, don't want to waste time, So where I post the fonts is a big part of that, because I didn't want to waste time marketing. I don't like social media. I didn't want to have to play the algorithm game. So I just looked up every marketplace that sells fonts that I could possibly find, 20, 30 of them, and posted my work there. Some of them you can just post your work, like Etsy. You don't need to like apply and be accepted. You can just do it. So Etsy is the first place I did it. And then Creative Market, you work for them, Envato Elements, Monotype, just a bunch of different platforms. I posted everywhere I possibly could.
Yeah.
About 5 of those make me a significant amount of money where I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep doing this, $1,000 a month, whatever, I'll keep doing it.
80-20 rule, right?
Yeah, it's about exactly that. So, yeah, a lot of people in the industry that I talk to is very interesting, like even the font industry, the digital design goods, they just pick one marketplace and just like stick to that. And I'm like, why? The people who shop at Creative Market are an entirely different class of people that shop at You Work for Them and Etsy. It's completely different demographics. So
Yeah.
if you don't post on all of them, you're just, you already made the thing. It takes 2 seconds to post it.
Yeah.
There is a stigma of like, serious fonts are not on Etsy.
Okay.
But I'm like, I don't care. I just need to pay rent. Like, I don't care. So, yeah, I just posted it everywhere. And the beautiful thing is, because it was on so many platforms and so many places, a little bit here, a little bit there, I didn't have to do any marketing. The places I sold on, because I was creating something every 2 weeks, like there's a person at, I'll use Creative Market for an example. It's just a marketplace for digital design goods.
Okay.
There's a person or a team, their entire job is to look at the new products and decide what goes in that week's email. And if I'm creating something every 2 weeks that's like high quality, that's trying to be, on trend but fresh and new, not just copying, chances are, somebody scrolling through is going to be like, oh yeah, that's cool. And once they see my thing 2 or 3 times, then they just know like, oh, this person every 2 weeks is going to create a good product. I'll send out the email to the 1 million people that are on the Creative Market email list. So I just sold everywhere I possibly could, and some worked, some didn't, and yeah, because I didn't want to waste time marketing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So you just did the shotgun approach.
Yeah.
You just figured which one worked. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. And still to this day, like I haven't posted on social media in like a year.
Wow.
No marketing, and it works. Yeah.
It just keeps bringing in money. That's amazing. That's very cool. So one of the things that I do want to break down from what you said is a lot of people struggle with figuring out their first steps, right? How did you figure out where to post? How did you figure out how to create? Like break that down a little bit to what was did you have a certain plan, or were you just kind of grabbing in the dark at how you figured out where to post and the websites and stuff like that?
A lot of grabbing in the dark.
Yeah.
Mainly grabbing in the dark. Another thing too that I think is one of the reasons I was able to be successful is I am a graphic designer. I love graphic design. I know graphic designers. So I kind of knew where me as a graphic designer would buy these things. So I had an idea of a couple places to post the things. So I was just like creating for myself, like where would I go to buy a font? Okay, I'll put my fonts there.
That's smart.
And I got like 2 or 3 marketplaces, but then I literally just Googled where to buy fonts, where to buy illustration, where to buy digital design goods.
Yeah.
And anything that came up, I applied and put my work there, and most of them didn't do anything, but a couple of them, like you said, it was about 80-20. A couple of them worked. So my approach is just kind of like Google it.
Yeah.
And then do it all.
Yeah.
And it'll work out.
Just figure it out, right? Just figure it out. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So who are the people out there in the world that are buying your fonts? Do you know?
Yeah. So old ladies cross-stitching to multi-billion-dollar companies and everything in between. On Etsy, it's going to be old ladies cross-stitching.
Yeah.
And on my personal website, it's going to be maybe some old ladies cross-stitching, but also like a bigger company. Like I've sold typefaces to Barnes & Nobles, ESPN, Nike, big clients. So it's the gambit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It's kind of, and it's weird too, because like you don't have to buy fonts. There's so many free fonts.
Yeah.
But people still buy them.
Yeah, see, I was doing some research on this last night, and the first thought that popped into my head, I said, why would someone buy a font when there's free fonts out there, right? So I want to hear your perspective on that. Why do people buy fonts when there's free fonts?
Okay, yeah. This, I think, is a very important principle to understand if you want to start a business. And let me say it, I'm going to get close. People do not buy products. They buy results.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So this is the best example I can think of. You're driving down the street. There's a lemonade stand. You pass it. You don't buy lemonade. Cool. Now let's pretend you're in the desert. Gonna die of dehydration. You pass a lemonade stand.
You're buying all of it.
You are buying that. Yeah. It's the exact same lemonade. So you don't buy the product. You buy the result. In your neighborhood, you're just gonna get some crappy lemonade. You're gonna drink a crappy drink. That's the result.
Yeah.
In the desert, it's going to save your life. That's a result. So for fonts, there's a few reasons. A company will buy a font, or a person will buy a font because they want to communicate in a clear, unique way. Like a font is like clothing, you wear something because you want to communicate something to the world. That's like a font. You want your design to communicate something to the world, and you're going to buy the font that does that. And I think whether we like to admit it or not, us graphic designers, it's kind of like a social status. Like, I bought the font. I don't use the free ones. I use the expensive fonts.
No, for sure. Yeah.
But then there's also, like, once you get into, like, the billion-dollar companies, like, they can't use the free fonts for certain niche instances. Like, there's international law regarding third-party services on websites, so they need to purchase the font because they can't have a font that's hosted by a third party. So, like, Google Fonts, a place where you can buy free fonts, but it's going to be hosted by a third party. So certain, like, big companies need to buy fonts for legal reasons. But other than that, it's mainly just I want to communicate in a cool, clear, unique way that a free font isn't going to do it for me. Or I want my design friends to think I'm way cool, so I'm going to buy the font. Yeah.
Here's a weird question. So me and you, when we're talking creativity, we're opposites, right? My brain cannot create to save its life. Your brain can create all day long, right? And it's a beautiful thing about us humans is we have certain niches and certain things that we're good and bad at, pros and cons, right? When you see a certain font on a building or Nike or Target or any of those places, does that communicate something to you, or do you just see a name?
Yeah, I mean, it communicates to me. I see it, like, kind of in a weird way because I'm so in the sauce. Like, do you watch Severance? You watch Severance?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're great show, beautiful show. But in the season finale, this is not a spoiler, it shows like a plaque on a door that has a name, and the name has an L and a T next to each other, like malt something. And the space between the L and the T is too wide. And it drove me crazy.
Drives you crazy?
I was like, this is a high-quality production show, and they showed me that disgusting thing. So, like, when I see them, I'm, like, way too critical of them.
That's awesome because I've seen that, and I have never noticed that in my life. I was just like, that's an LT. I mean, moving on, right? That's a perfect example. That's awesome because there are certain things to certain people that they look at, and it's a pet peeve, and they're just like, what are they doing, right? So, cool.
But, it's kind of funny, too, though, because, like, I can get in, like, I can be in that world, but I got to realize, like, when I'm creating fonts, I'm not creating fonts for font designers. I'm a font designer. I don't buy fonts. I make it myself.
Right.
I'm creating them for business owners or graphic designers who aren't going to notice those little things. So it's a classic pitfall that creatives get into is they spend, like, 5 hours getting the product 95% there, and then like 100 hours getting it the last 5%. 99% of people aren't going to care about the 5%.
So forget about it.
So spend 10 hours instead of 110 hours and do that. That's kind of my approach too, which is kind of poo-pooed by people, but I still create the highest quality I possibly can.
Yeah.
And I think I got very good very fast because I didn't waste the 100 hours getting that last 5%. I just got the 95%, and my 95% became better and better and better and better and better and better, and is now most people's 100%.
No, I think you're spot on with that because when I see a logo or something, the only thing my brain says is yay or nay. It does not pick that apart at all. Do I like the colors? Do I like the shapes? Right? That's all I'm thinking about. You're thinking about spacing. You're thinking about loops. You're thinking whatever. You're thinking points. Is it too pointy? Is it too dull? You know what I'm saying? Like maybe that's what you're thinking about. But to me, I just see it and go, that's cool or that's not cool. Right? Yeah.
No, it gets to a certain level where it's just like a matter of opinion.
Yeah. Forget about it.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, if you want to do that in your own as a hobby, I encourage it
knock
100%.
yourself out.
Like, do it. If you want to create to make money, which I believe is the only way that you can truly, like, create freely, like creative freedom, you need to be able to have that support you. Otherwise, you're working for somebody. You're gonna have to do what they say. So if you want to create to make money, don't worry about that. Understand that the last 5% is mostly opinion, and just get the thing out. Just
Great
make the
advice.
thing.
Great advice. So the digital asset world and owning a business online, I think is one of the best things we have in today's world.
Oh,
right?
Totally, yeah.
And I want to dive into those who haven't quite discovered this space yet, right? Most people think, I want to be a business owner, and they think of a shop, they think of a car wash, they think of something where they have to have an office or a warehouse space or stuff like that. And in today's world, there's so many businesses that you can do out of the office of your home. And so break down what somebody who's aspiring to be a font designer or be in the creative digital asset space, what do they need to get started?
A computer and software to design, and that is it.
Amen.
That is absolutely it. I had a computer that I got for school years ago. I had free design software because my school paid for it, but I had to pay $50 to buy the font design software. And $50 is literally all it took to start the business.
Wow.
I bought the font design software, and then I just made fonts. And because I posted on these marketplaces, I didn't even have a website. I didn't need to waste money on time. How do I build a website? I didn't even have a logo.
Yeah.
I just typed T/T parenthesis in like the default font. That's my logo.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you just need the tools to make the thing that you want to make, and that is literally it. And like a computer but it's a digital design good, so you're gonna have a computer. If you're a designer, you're gonna have a computer.
For sure.
So you could start it with nothing, just skill is the main bar of entry,
For sure.
Yeah.
If you're not a creative person like myself, you would never really venture into this space. But at the same time, you're not going to try either because our brains don't think of creating fonts, right?
Yeah.
So, but if you are a creative person, you probably have looked at fonts before and be like, I could create a better font than that.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Or just like anything, like I wasn't necessarily like super like passionate about fonts. Like for most of my life, I was like, I'm a graphic designer. That's I'm a graphic designer. That's what I do. But I just created tools because I wanted to help graphic designers like myself. Like I liked using fonts, so I made the tool to help graphic designers a font. Every graphic designer needs a font. So I would say another good thing if you want to get into this digital design good is make something that helps your people create what they love to create, whatever that is. If maybe you're an architect, so maybe you learn 3D software so you can help architects better, stage a scene of their building. Like you learn the 3D software, which is a little bit outside of architecture because most architects aren't going to do that. I don't know, maybe they will. And then you bring that skill that you kind of stepped out, you bring it back into the industry that you love. So, I am an architect, but now I know how to make chairs in 3D software, so I can sell this pack of 3D chairs to architects so they can put it in their little building that they make, and it will look nice.
Wow.
So, yeah, I would say that's another good thing, too, is make tools that you use and love.
Yeah.
Because what you are your industry.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
One of the things I want to talk about, backing up just a little bit, is you mentioned something super valuable once again. You're just full of gold nuggets. But one of the things that you said was you didn't focus on the wrong things when you went to start your business, right? There's so many people who spend so much time on non-money making actions. And they need to get away from that, and they need to focus. When you're starting a business, if you're in a W-2 and you're starting a side hustle, and this is the perfect side hustle, you could do this in your spare time, right?
Yeah.
If you're working 4 days a week and you got 3 days left,
Yeah.
you could 100% start this as a side hustle, right?
Yeah, I mean, I did it. I had a full-time job, and I was teaching, and then I did this nights and weekends.
Yeah, yep.
It worked.
And I've spoken to people before who like 5 years ago I started this side hustle, and I'm like, 5 years ago? What have you been working on? Well, I got to get my website figured out. And I'm like, why are we worrying about our website? It doesn't make you any money, right?
Yeah.
Why aren't we worrying about the thing that makes you money? And so that's one lesson that I want people to walk away with is when you're starting a business, don't worry about the fluff.
Yeah.
It's just fluff, right? It's if it's not producing you income, do not worry about it until you have income coming in, and then you can go back and create this awesome world, this awesome website, this awesome logo. And I get it. It's fun to create the logo. It's fun to create the name. It's fun to create the website, right? Because then it's yours, and it's just you have this empire, right? But it's not making you any money, so stop it, right? Just focus on the things that are going to make you money. and then you can do that stuff later.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm a graphic designer. Like, making a website's easy. I started my business
Still
without a
didn't care
website.
about it.
Yeah. Making a logo is easy. I started my business without a logo.
Yeah.
You don't need that stuff. Like, I'm of the opinion, if you are a creative person selling to other creative people, which is what I do, it is 99% about the product, the quality of the product. And, you know, it needs to be high quality, it needs to be desirable, it needs to be unique. If you can do that, like I said, I don't worry about marketing. I don't worry about this, that. 90% of my time is spent making the thing that I love to make. For me, it's fonts. For someone, it might be furniture. For somebody, it might be clothes, you know.
Yep.
So,
And it creates you money.
yeah.
So that's where your attention should be, right?
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, and the digital space allows you to do that.
Yeah. Was there ever a time where you were worried that this wouldn't work and you did have to get a job?
Yeah. So when I graduated school in New York, I was making this, you know, $3,000 was kind of the minimum. It was like $3,000 to $5,000 a month. Not enough money to live in New York.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Great
That seems...
money anywhere else.
Yeah.
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 The average rent at the time I graduated was $4,000.
Wow. For just a little studio, right?
Yeah, it was insane. And anyways, so I was like, okay, this got me through grad school, but it's not viable. It's not sustainable. I can't pay $4,000 in rent and make only $5,000 and pay the other $8,000 for groceries. And
Yeah, you're living off ramen.
and I got no, you know, and then when tax season comes around, what the hell am I gonna do? Which happened. So when I graduated, I got a job, and I got like the job that I always wanted to get, which was working at the coolest design studio. I turned down a few jobs, and for a couple months I didn't have a job. People were offering me. I was like, no, it's not right. It's not right. I gotta have the cool job at the cool design studio, and I got that job. It was at an awesome design studio, and I was making awesome money too. But you know, I was just like, it's just what I had to do if I wanted to live in New York. And I was of the mindset like, when I moved out to New York, I was never gonna leave New York. So I did what I, you know, had to do to live in New York, and I got the dream job and made very good money, and it lasted 3 months, and I could not stand it. I got a taste of the good life working for myself. And so yeah, I got the job because I was like, it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
But then I got the job, was unhappy, so I was like, well, I have to make it work. And is it more important for me to be in New York and have the cool design job, or is it more important for me to be my own boss, have total creative freedom? Like, I'm very snobby, and when I present a design and somebody says, change this, I'm like, you have no taste and you are a moron. And I couldn't do that every day. So I was like, okay, you know, I'm going to have to leave New York. We're going to have to live somewhere as cheap as we can, probably, and make this work. And my wife is very, very, very supportive of me. And she said,
That's
okay,
awesome.
yeah, let's do it. So, and then the year after I graduated, after I got the job, quit the job, it was a really rough year. The year prior, I made very good money at my 3 months design job. And then I was making also good money with the fonts on the side that were just going in the background. But then the next year, things tanked in the font world, because fonts are the first thing to go in an economy.
Oh.
So that's what I say.
Okay.
So like 2023, very bad year. Very desperate. Luckily, I was smart enough to save money
To weather the storm.
Yeah. You know, I like between the design job for 3 months and selling fonts, I'd made like $100,000 that year. I managed to save about 40, and that got me through 2023. And then it was just 1 year of kind of like working, weathering the storm, and I did more freelance graphic design work because I had to, you know, I just had to live and get by. But then 2024, things just picked up again.
Yeah.
I think it's just an economy thing. So things picked up again. But yeah, the entire year of 2023, I was like, this ain't gonna work, this ain't gonna work, this ain't gonna work. But I was doing it anyways.
Yeah.
Just watching the bank account plummet, living with the in-laws, being like, it's a race to the bottom. It's me versus zero. So, yeah.
You know, I have this theory in life, and I call it the business gods. Okay. And I think that anybody who becomes successful has to prove to that business god. There's many, many business gods. There's the real estate business gods. There's the logistics business gods. There's the creative business gods, right? You had to prove to your business god that you were going to stick it through and that you were going to continue to work even though it wasn't producing you income in 2023.
Yeah.
And during that time, it actually showed them, right, that you were able to weather the storm, to stick through it, to keep creating even when times were bad, and then they blessed you in 2024 and from here on out, right? And that's happened so much in my life. And I would actually, if someone actually knows the science behind that, I'd like you to post that in the comments, because I'd love to know what it is about us humans when we grind and we put in the work for a solid year when nothing's happening, and then all of a sudden something just pops and it happens, right? Ask any real estate agent, ask any business owner. There is a time in their life where they're working their absolute head off and they are not making any money, right? And you all have times where you go, I don't know what I'm doing. What am I doing here, right? Like, and you question your existence. You're like, I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm not a business owner. I got to go get another 9 to 5.
Yeah, that was the one.
I
Just
mean,
like, I can't provide. I'm a loser.
I remember in 2019, I was in real estate, and that was my first year in real estate. And there were so many times in the back of my head where like, should I be a waiter? Should I go back and work construction? What should I do? And
I worked construction during 2023. I was like, I can't make it work. Construction.
Yeah. And so in the background, I was still doing real estate. You were still doing fine. And then it still just absolutely catapults you to success. Something to be said about the grind and just blood, sweat, and tears through that time in your life.
There's a book, I believe it's by Seth Godin, but it explains the concept of like, you'll make quick progress and then there'll be a dip. And if you can weather the dip, then it's all good. And I like speaking to creative people who want to start businesses. Again, creative people hate business. They love the creative thing they do. And in my mind, I believe a business is the best way to sustain the creative thing that you do.
Yeah.
Without anybody else telling you this, that, or the other. So I think it's like you have to just have passion. If you want to be in a creative industry, you have to have passion, and it will get you through that storm. I was creating fonts in 2023 when it was just every single month I was making less than the month before, and everyone in the font industry was happening too.
Yeah.
It wasn't just me, but I loved doing it for hours a day. I loved doing it, and I was gonna, like I said, it was a race between me and the bank account to zero. Like, I'm doing this until I absolutely cannot anymore.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, if you lead with passion and figure out a way to set up your business so you do the thing every day, you can get through a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Well said.
Sometimes you'll need to work construction, but you'll still do the thing on the side until eventually it pays off.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. Are there any certificates or licenses that someone needs in order to post fonts online or to sell fonts? Any credentials that someone needs, or can anyone just create a font and post it online?
Anyone can do it. That's a beautiful thing about it, is like it's the easiest business in the world to start to do creative digital design goods, is what I call them, digital design goods. It's so easy.
Yeah.
Because you can tomorrow set up an Etsy shop and start making stuff and posting it. And for me, the bar of entry is entirely skill. Like, you might need to pay $50 for the design software. You can come up with $50.
Yeah.
Work one day a week, make the $50 you can pay the other for, live with your in-laws, and you can make it work.
Yeah.
It's just skill. You need to put in the time to have your product be of a certain quality that it stands out from the rest of the crowd. So
What tips would you give people to hone their skills a little bit better? Are there classes that you took, or are there people did you have any mentors, anyone you learned from, or how did you, I assume you've gotten better since you've started.
Yes.
Yeah. So how did you do all that?
Yeah, so when I started, it was I downloaded the design software, read the user manual. Right? Nobody's going to do that.
No one does that. Okay.
I did that.
Okay.
I was like, I need to. And I thought about doing a font design. There was like a summer program. It was $4,000. Wow. And I was like, I don't have that.
Yeah.
Looks like I'm reading the user manual.
Yeah.
And then I would just typefaces that I liked. I would just look at them and be like, how are they doing this certain curve? What is the space between the L and the T? What's right? So I just like looked at things I liked and tried to recreate them, not to sell, just like as my own personal practice. And then YouTube, there wasn't a lot on YouTube. There was a class on LinkedIn Learning for like $20. I bought that class. And I have probably consumed every piece of type design what's it called? Teaching, whatever, type design education that is free on the internet. I have consumed it. And I've read the manuals of the software. So in any design industry, you can get the education for free on YouTube, probably. If not YouTube, again, Google it.
Yeah.
How to learn such and such software.
Uh-huh.
And maybe you need to pay $20 for a course.
Yeah.
Okay. Domestika, LinkedIn Learning, Skillshare. These are all platforms that you can just buy classes for $20, learn a skill, start there.
Yeah. For us non-creative people, one of the tools I love to use is ChatGPT. And I'll take a picture of my website, or I'll take a picture of something that I'm posting online, and I'll ask AI, hey, what do you think about this? And it actually tells me, hey, your colors suck. Or, hey, this isn't right. You need to make the font bigger, or you need to do this and this. And I was actually pleasantly surprised. So just a fun tip, if you're somebody, because I'm sure the creative people are like, AI knows nothing about creativity. I'm so much better than that, right? But for us non-creative people, AI is kind of a cool tool to help us out, be like, oh yeah, that does suck. I'll change that. And then I take another picture and I post it again. And I go, what do you think about this? And they're like, good job, sir. And I'm like, hey, thank you. I did it, right?
And I think it boils down to your audience. Like, my audience is graphic designers. They're going to smell AI from a mile away.
Good
but
point.
If your audience, if you're owning a gym, nobody cares.
No one cares.
I don't go to a gym for their taste.
Yeah. Yeah.
I go to get buff.
Yeah.
So nobody cares.
No.
And it goes back to what you were saying. Focus on the things that matter. Don't worry about the things that don't matter.
Yep.
So for me, selling to designers, the only thing that mattered was the quality, the taste. Everything else was just fluff details. If the quality and the taste isn't right, nothing is going to work.
Yeah.
So, yeah. ChatGPT is great. But, for me, as a designer selling to designers, they smell it.
It's
they
for
know.
Us non-creative folk, right? That need help in life.
The plebeians.
Which is good, because we want humans to be the dominants there. We don't want AI to take over and be better than humans at creative. So I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah. And it gets to a point I'm very, very obsessed about, I want to be the absolute best at what I do. If you Google, fun fact, bestgraphicdesignerinttheworld.com, that's my website.
Oh. Sending it to the universe. There we go.
So, it gets to a certain point, and this is what you should aim for. This happened to me 2 days ago. I kid you not. I had a question. I'm like, let me experiment with ChatGPT. I asked it, what's the difference between this and this? A type design question. And you know what it pulled up? My own stuff.
Oh.
I was like,
that's when you know you made it, man.
I was like, ChatGPT looks to me for advice.
Oh, man.
So it gets to a certain point, and this is what creatives, if you're a creative wanting to start your own business, it's surprisingly easy to get to a point where you are the person who ChatGPT looks to as the expert.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
No, I noticed that too. I've asked questions before, and it'll throw up YouTube videos, right? And I did have a thought one day. I'm like, one day I will be on ChatGPT's radar, right? And it happened to you. That's so cool, man. That is so cool.
I was like, I don't need to use this. It uses me. ChatGPT asks itself, like,
That's boss.
Yeah.
What would you say your biggest challenges are that you face day to day with this type of business?
The challenges I face day to day, I would say it depends on the season. So, like 2023, the challenges I faced every day were just mental because things were going downhill and downhill and downhill. And I was trying everything I could to make it work. So every day was just like a mental challenge of convincing myself that I should do this and not just abandon it. And, thinking like, is the bank account too low now? Is it too low now? Just mental challenges when things are bad. 2024, I was skating. It was easy. So the challenges there were very minimal.
Yeah.
My biggest challenge in 2024 was how to draw a better lowercase f. It just, just the skill.
Do you ever get writer's block? Or like what would you call that in the creative world? Like, do you ever just like sit down and go to creative block? Do you ever sit down and go to create something and your brain is just like, I've already done that?
Well, yeah, and I think a lot of that was like 2023. I was like that because things weren't working. I was unmotivated, but then when things started working, I had a little more breathing room, and now I don't ever have creative block. My challenge now is getting enough like sleep and stopping myself from working because I could work all day, every day, because I had 2024 for some breathing room. Like I worked 4 hours a day, and then I focused on my family, my fitness, my mental health, spirituality, religion, all of that. And it kind of put me in a better place to like set up my everyday. So this is another thing is when you're starting a business, when I start a business, I wanted to focus on my everyday. So there's after I graduated, I was like, okay, I'm unhappy. Why? I need to start a business so every day I can do something I enjoy. And to do that, I need to not worry about marketing. So I have to post on these different marketplaces, I can't just have my own website. And I honestly enjoy my work every day. Yeah. It's 90% creating the thing I love to create. I don't have creative block because I was able to step back and say, okay, I had creative block. Why was that? Well, I wasn't consuming enough things that were getting me excited and inspired. So now I wake up every day. The first thing I do is read to get ideas. And I look at design that I think is good and beautiful and that gets me inspired. And, I just can't help but I'm just chomping at the bit. I want to create. I know what I want to create. Boom, 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 boom. My biggest challenge is getting enough sleep because I dream of designing typefaces and I wake up at 4 a.m. and I'm like, well, that's it. I'm not going to, I can't sleep for the rest of the day because I just want to get going.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's cool. That's when you're living your dream, right?
Yeah. Like, it's funny, like the other guests you have on the podcast that I've seen, it's like, I'm like, those are successful business people. And then I look at me, I'm like, I live with my in-laws. Like, I make $100,000 a year, which to some people is a lot of money.
Yeah.
But to like a business person, they're like small peanuts. But like for me, it is the dream life because like there's studies. Once you get over $100,000, money doesn't dictate happiness. And for some reason, I believed that. I think like 10 years ago it was like 70,000. Now it's 100. And I believe that. And so I'm like, yeah, if I can hit that, any more isn't going to make me more happy.
Yeah.
So what do I need to do to be more happy? It's the everyday. So instead of my business that takes me, let's say, 8 hours a day to run, but it makes me $200,000 a year.
Yeah.
How can I cut it down to I'm working 4 hours a day while instead of, growing the business, I'm shrinking the business while maintaining that base level of income so I can only work 4 hours a day but spend an hour a day rock climbing, spend an hour a day on a walk with my wife, make a good dinner every night. So that's kind of my mindset is I'm a business person who is all about the lifestyle and just uses business as a tool to get me the lifestyle I want. So, I can travel because my business allows me to do that.
Yeah.
I can work 4 hours a day because I was like, hey, I want a business that makes me do that. I don't care about the big money. I just want to be happy. I live with my in-laws by choice because I love living with my in-laws.
Yeah.
And it takes some financial pressure off, which is an added bonus.
Yeah.
So that $100,000 makes me very happy.
Yeah, for sure.
I found myself like $60,000 is kind of where I'm happy because I don't pay rent. I'm with the in-laws. And, anything above that, I'm like a cool bonus, but I'm not going to work an hour more a day to make another $100,000.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And I actually love that about you because it's refreshing to hear somebody who isn't obsessed with money or sees things completely different than I speak to a lot of people, and that's one of the first times I've heard that. And it comes down to your definition of success, right? What is your definition of success? And I think so many of us in today's society, we use other people's definition of success, right? We see that person on YouTube, we see that friend of ours, we see that relative of ours, and we go, that person's successful, I want to be like that person, right? But how many times have you really sat down, I'm not mean you, I'm talking about the audience, right? How many times have they really sat down and wrote out on a piece of paper what success looks like to them, right? What success looks like to me is vastly different than what success looks like to you, right? When I hear your version of success, I go, that's cool and I love that, but that's not for me.
But living with your in-laws.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not even that part. It's just like, but there's other parts of it where I go, oh, working 4 hours a day, taking an hour walk with my wife, making an awesome dinner. It's not, I'm going to go home and I'm going to hopefully eat something so I can go on to a church activity. You know what I mean? And so it's one of those things where, make sure you're writing down what your success is, right? And don't judge other people because their success is different from your success. Success is such a different word, right?
Yeah.
And I love it. That was awesome, man.
I think it comes down to kind of like prioritizing your goals.
Yeah.
For me, like the number one priority is, for me, it's religious, conviction and personal spirituality, righteousness, whatever. That's like number one. So I'm never going to do anything that would take away from that. Number two is enjoying as much time as I can from Monday to Friday. So, if I'm having to work 8 hours and making more than $100,000, I'm the kind of person who's going to be like, if I don't like it, no.
Yeah,
so
that's
like a
awesome.
list of priorities helps. And it goes in seasons. Like right now I'm working much more than 4 hours a day because I'm trying to build something new, because I want to make enough money to buy a house without having to pay like a mortgage.
Pay cash.
It kills me to have debt. It's a mental, so I'm going to work more because I want to make more money faster, because I specifically, have this specific purpose. It's to buy a house so that I can, honestly create more. It'll be a weird house with like a home studio and a photo studio for my wife. And it's a goal that allows me to then revert back to being more creative with less time and money.
Yeah.
I won't need to pay for a photo studio. My wife won't need to pay for a photo studio. She won't need to drive an hour to take photos in a photo studio. She could just do it right there in the house.
Yeah, that's the dream.
So it's like a goal of a prioritization of goals. And for me, money is very, very low priority once I hit that bar that I found that I'm happy with, which if I'm not paying rent, is $60,000.
Yeah.
If I am paying rent, maybe $100,000.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm. Spot on. And that's just such smart thinking, because a lot of people, if you ask them, hey, how much money do you need to be happy? Most people will say $100,000. That's statistically proven that that's the number that they want, right? But in all reality, people don't necessarily think about how much money they really need, right? They need to do the exercise of writing out what you need, what you want, right? And then creating that dream. And then if your number is $257,261.51, it needs to be that specific, right?
Yeah.
If you want that car, if you want that house, if you want this, that, and the other, you need to price it out to see exactly what you want. And then the anxiety of, I wonder how much money I need, goes away, because you know how much money you need. And now you're working towards a goal to accomplish that, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. It's like when I was in New York and I wrote it out, and I needed to make $3,000 a month to live.
Yeah.
And I did what I needed to do to make that and no more, because priorities,
Yeah,
just
100%. Yeah. So, Harbor, if someone who is aspiring to be a creative digital asset producer, or even a font creator like yourself, diving that deep into it, what's a few pieces of advice you would give them to make sure that they start out on the right foot?
Number one, you have to be passionate about it, because you're designing against people who are passionate about it. Like, I absolutely love designing fonts. Like I said, I dream about designing fonts. You are never going to create a better font than me if you are not in that same mindset. So you need to be passionate about what you do to make it work, especially if you're a creative person. Once you do that, it's all about the skill. You need to raise your skill set to aspire to be the very best in the industry. And you do that by putting in your 10,000 hours. Everyone knows that. I'm also a big fan of, like, read about your industry, learn about it every day. The skill, the craft, learn about it every single day. So read. I'm also a big fan of, like, daily journaling, writing about what you're doing. So I would say, first step, do not try and do be in the creative industry, or especially digital design goods, unless you are very passionate about the product that you are creating.
Yeah.
And then become very good at doing the thing you do. I designed fonts for about a year before I released any of them. And they were like of a certain quality, whatever. Just get very good at what you do.
Yeah.
Just put in the time. Cannot be faked.
Do you wish you would have released some sooner?
No, I started releasing them like pretty much when I met my wife, and I was like, oh crap, like I need to go now.
Yeah, the necessity thing. Yep.
And like the first bunch that I released, well, yeah, no, I guess I would have always, if I would have started releasing them sooner, I would have probably gotten frustrated that it wasn't working sooner, reached out for help sooner, and then found something that worked sooner. So, yeah, that's another thing, like, just start now.
Start.
I think, like, dang, if I would have done this in undergrad, I'd have had 5-6 more years of experience, and I'd be just living the life now. But, yeah, so that's it. Start with your passion. If you're not passionate, don't even do it. And then get really good at what you do. And then the third thing would be just make something that is desirable and unique.
Love it.
And I think if you can do that, the rest will come together.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. Yeah, that's awesome. The one thing I want to say before we close is the advice to just start. That's one of those things that's vastly underestimated, right? There's so many people who get this analysis paralysis, is what we call it, right? And they just sit there and they study their world, and they study how they're going to do it, and they study how they're going to start, and then 10 years later, they haven't done anything, right? And if they just would have started, even though it's just a sloppy, disgusting mess, it does not matter, because you said it perfectly. If you would have started sooner, you would have reached out for help sooner, and you would have been making money sooner, right?
Yeah.
It was inevitable that you had to reach out for help.
Yeah.
It was just, when were you going to reach out for help?
Yeah. And here's the thing, too. You will no matter where you are in life, you will look back 5 years and be embarrassed by the person you were.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do? Like, wait another 10 years to release something? Like, I won't be embarrassed 10 years from now. No matter where you are in your life, you're going to look back and be like, that was embarrassing.
Yeah.
That was bad quality.
Yep.
That was, I had no idea what you were doing.
Yep.
No matter how good you think you are,
Mm-hmm.
you will think that about yourself in a year, 2 years. So just put it out.
Yep.
It will be terrible.
Mm-hmm.
My first fonts were terrible.
Yeah.
I don't even want anybody to know I made them. I'm embarrassed.
Yeah.
But I had to do it to, get the momentum. Just, do it. It will be terrible no matter how hard you try and make it good.
Yeah.
But you need to get past that.
Yeah.
That's the only way. Yeah.
Yeah. So Harbor, if people want to keep in contact with you, if they want to learn from you on how to design fonts and be creative and stuff like that, where can they find you?
I have a YouTube channel, Extra Credit Design Club, and that's mainly where I talk about like extra credit design stuff they don't teach you in school, more like the business things and just like ooh in the sky. Not so much like practical tutorial, this is how you use this tool. It's more pie in the sky, extra credit stuff. On YouTube, and then my typefaces you can buy at thattype.com.
Thattype.com.
Yeah.
Okay,
Type.
awesome. We'll put them in the show notes as well. But Harbor, thank you so much for coming on to My Elevated Mindset Business Edition. We loved having you. If you're wanting to go out and start your first business like Harbor did, like myself did, and other million people have done around the world, and you're just not quite sure how to get that ball rolling, head on over to myelevatedmindset.com where you can download your free 7-step checklist that I've used to create multiple $1 million businesses. It can help you. I promise it will help you. Download the 7-step checklist. It's for free on myelevatedmindset.com, and let's start making your dreams come true.